The time has come for senior citizen fantasy suites. In fact, the first thing we see is Gary saying to Leslie, "You haven't asked me any of the hard questions." So Leslie says, "When's the last time you had sex?" They had an overarching theme for this episode, and that was just, just the first glimmer into what will be. So we're in Costa Rica, and it's Fantasy Suite Week. The only difference from here to other seasons is there are only 2 people instead of 3. Again, probably has to do with maybe stamina, I don't know. But Gary's calling this the greatest adventure of his life, and that he's here to find his second love of his life. It's beautiful here. There's a volcano in the background, could explode at any minute. We have Leslie and Teresa left. They show a quick clip of Leslie, and it looks like she's not wearing a bra, and I just don't, how at 60 years old does she get away with that? I've never been able to get away with that. The perk is there. Then we cut to Jesse and Gary, and they are having a chat about what's to come here. Gary says he can see Leslie being a life partner, and she's fun, and blah, 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 blah. And then Teresa gives him like a nice, warm, safe feeling. They relate on how they lost their spouses, and they get each other. But with Teresa, he hasn't said he loves her back, and he tells Jesse he's just waiting for the right moment and the right feel. And now Jesse asks him how he feels about intimacy, so Gary asks him to define that. And this makes Jesse uncomfortable. He wants to say the S word, but instead says how babies are made. So S clearly stands for stork. But remember before Nick Vial, however you say his last name, told the entire world that he slept with Andy in the fantasy suites? Before that ever happened, it was always just like, oh, I wonder what they actually do in there. It was very hush-hush, and it was private, and it was great. Days of mystery and scandal. Now it's just part of a checklist. But nevertheless, Gary says he'll read the room and how it's a moment he wouldn't want to rush, nor would he want to pass up. So basically, he's geared up and ready. I need to know, though, for personal reasons, okay, if he needs a pill. That's where letting this stuff be exposed comes in handy for Nikki's entertainment. What do the old people do when they do it? But I advise you not to think too hard about it, because then you won't want to talk about it at all. I will say Jesse's clear discomfort while talking about this with Gary, and his laughter and the way he's handling it kind of makes me like him a little bit. Just a glimmer of hope for Jesse, if you will. But for real, they just keep going on and on about this topic. Gary did give me some info that I wanted, like how at their age it's more about being gentle and slow. It's weird to talk about. And also how he wants to make sure that their comfort level is 100% there, which I appreciate. He's just a good guy. We know this. It's shown more and more throughout the season. The episode. So I have to say it every time. Gary, you're a good guy. But before we move on, I have to say, Leslie just doesn't seem like the type of person who wants to go gentle and slow. And before they cut to commercial, they have a shot of Gary sitting alone in an outdoor tub next to an empty outdoor tub. This, I guess, is an implication for elderly intimacy. And if that's true, I look forward to it because I love a bath. But first date is Leslie. She comes out, runs up to him, jumps onto him, leg wrap around, and he grabs her. He's got her, but there's a little wobble of the legs. And as a reminder, they both said they loved each other last week. So we find out that their date is that just one adventurous date that we see in the previews where they're rappelling down a cliff. And of all the women, Leslie is definitely the one to do this with. She just seems like that type of gal. She hasn't found out exactly what they're doing yet, but she's very cute and smiley and excited about the date. And they have very good energy together. And they seem very playful. Like she picks on him and says that she's surprised that they found that the shoe was big enough for him. Whereas if we were to compare it to his relationship with Teresa, I think Teresa's a bit more nurturing. Not that they can't both be playful and nurturing, but I would say the two of them each lean more heavily one way. I lied. Leslie did know what they were doing. But anyway, she's very nervous about this. But Gary promises he'll stay next to her the whole time as they're heading down. They'll stay nice and parallel. And for some reason, as they're going down, they thought it would be a great idea to put Leslie right next to the waterfall. She's getting sprayed in the face. Obviously, that's where the rocks are the slipperiest. So the way down, it's a little rocky. But Gary's encouraging her all along the way, and they eventually make it down to level ground. And now they're just chilling in like a tide pool, pond. I don't know what is the collective water beneath a waterfall. Either way, that's where they are. And they're hugging and waiting in the water. And she has something in her hand. You can tell she's holding on to something, but we don't see what it is. And it could obviously just be nothing, probably like some souvenir rock. But I still want to know what it is, along with Gary's lion tattoo, the meaning. But in an interview, Gary says there's the potential for fantasy suites, which means he's going to have to ask her some questions. Make sure that they're on the same page first. And now there's been so much talk about fantasy suites and, that this has got to be the producers pushing it. They're purposely pushing this conversation because they want it to be the sole focus of the episode. Probably why they decided to split the finale into two, and hopefully neither of the girls get split into two before we get there. So now we have dinner, and Gary asks Leslie if she's hungry, but we know the Bachelor is notorious for not allowing them to eat on camera, at least on a date. So will they actually eat? I mean, they are old people, where maybe blood sugar levels are a factor. I don't know, but I don't see them eat. But Gary opens up the conversation by saying how he's wondering if she's like purposely not asking him the hard questions, if she's holding back. Behind the scenes, he wonders if they both have rose-colored glasses on. So obviously, when Leslie receives this information, her first instinct is to say, okay, here's a question. When's the last time you had sex? There's that scene from the beginning. And Gary almost spits out his drink. And I mean, we get the answers. We find out that for Gary, it's been a while. He's not specific, but it sounds like it's probably been maybe years. And Leslie comes out and says it's been a year for her. I'm not sure if she was just trying to be funny or, if she deals with uncomfortable situations with humor like I do. Or if this is, a legitimate concern of hers, because it could be. No, I'm pretty sure she was just trying to be funny, because then they take their conversation into a more serious place, and she handles it well. And it moves into like talk of where they would live and how they would make that work. And Leslie doesn't want to leave Minneapolis permanently because of her family, but says she loves him and she wants to be with him, so they would just figure it out. Gary likes that. Gary says, yes, I like that you said we can figure it out. And he reminds her that they would be committed to each other till death. And this triggers Leslie. I mean, in a good way, like not all triggers are bad, but it gets her going. I think it's impactful for her, like she says, because she had 2 failed marriages that clearly were not till death do us part. So this is new for Leslie. She's not used to having somebody fully commit to her. So now if he picks Teresa, it's just going to ruin Leslie's life. I don't really mean that. She is a strong woman, but if we're being realistic, it's going to ruin her life. But it sounds like she really wants that commitment. I originally was feeling like with the 2 divorces, we needed some answers there. Like maybe she is afraid of commitment, which we still don't really have the details that we need for it, but through this conversation and her emotion, it seems like she really truly wants to be able to just settle down with one person forever. Then they obviously get their fantasy suite invite. The handwriting on the card hasn't changed, but it's now signed Jesse instead of Chris. We all knew Chris didn't actually write these out, but you could at least switch up the font. Those ancient looking keys haven't changed though. Funny that they didn't even use it to unlock the door. Interesting, how that works. So they're in the fantasy suite, they're sitting on a couch, and there's all this talk about intimacy. She says she already feels the intimacy with their touching and their hugging and their kissing, and how she just wants that to grow. And Gary says, me too. Thank you. Thank you, he says. Thank you for wanting to... Yeah, but worse than that, okay? He brings up the Trista thing again, where she told him, don't find somebody just to live with, find the person that you can't live without. And he tells Leslie that he thinks she's that person. Either he's pulling another Ben Higgins and he's going to go and hit Teresa with the same thing, or he doesn't realize that the cameras haven't actually left the building yet. Now they move to the bed and they're kissing and getting very touchy. And then the lights turn off, which I would bet is probably a shot that they get before they even enter the room. Intern Steven has to go hide in a corner and flip a switch while the camera's rolling just to get that cool shot in there. If they're up talking as long as they say that they are, wouldn't they just keep a light on? It's not like they can see very well. And they end with a little cheeky comment where Gary asks Leslie what temperature she likes the thermostat at, and she says 69. She's just a little freak, isn't she? But I think we figured that out back when she did that little dance at the talent show. But then when we come back, it's the morning after, sipping coffee, find out that they went to bed around 3 a.m. Gary in his interview says what happened last night is frankly no one's effing business. Good for you, Gary. I like that old school mentality that we lost with Nick Viall. It's good to keep some things private, but did you need a little blue pill? So now we have Teresa. She also runs and jumps into his arms. He catches her. We don't see the legs though, so he might not have wobbled. Teresa's also a little bit, she's tiny. He's got that pickleball strength. I always wonder how soon after each fantasy suite they move on to the next one. And Gary does say how it's the next day and how hard it is. It could be the same day that he says goodbye to Leslie, but I don't think it is. I think it's like, say goodbye to Leslie. You've got a night to yourself. Teresa the next day. But that's, at At most, that's got to be what it is, right? Either way, that's tough. But this date is a little bit more low-key. They are horseback riding, which almost seems like it was pre-planned for Faith and that everybody on the show was shocked she went home, just like me. It's okay because I do like Teresa. I just loved Faith. But they're riding along and things seem awkward right now. Gary's really quiet. We know Gary loves to chat and smile, and he's really doing neither of those things. He's very stone cold. You can tell he's in his head. I think at one point Teresa says, "Are you okay?" And he doesn't say anything. So Teresa knows he's not himself. So when they get off the horses and they sit and talk, Gary's going over how it's a tough day and he doesn't know how to handle these back-to-back dates. I applaud him for the honesty, but I gotta say, Teresa is just such a mature, just really lovely lady. Did I mention I just love Golden Bachelor contestants? She's basically empathizing with him, saying how she understands how hard that must be, even though she doesn't want to be in his shoes. And she reminds him that she loves him. She's not being selfish about it, turning it on her. I mean, this clearly has got to make her a little bit sad, but instead she's putting her feelings aside and she's being there for Gary, like a wonderful long-term partner would do. Life partner. Life partner. Do you like how I do this as if they're right over to my right? Hey! But of course, in Gary's post-production interview, he's talking about how Teresa is such a wonderful person, but all he can think about is Leslie. Now, we've learned, based off the Faith things last time, that the show wants to throw us off whenever they can. Any chance. So this could be another post-production decoy. I have not yet gotten smart enough to figure out the formula, but for right now, in this very moment, I'm taking it to not mean anything. The date goes on. Gary's talking about how he wants to try to force himself to keep an open mind, which is good, and so they proceed to dinner. But he is apparently wondering if they've kind of maxed out the relationship, if he's taken it as far as it can go. And I'm thinking, I would bet not, since we have another whole episode after this week. But let's see what transpires. So the conversation kicks off with Gary talking about their similarities, but how there's more that he just doesn't know about her. Apparently this whole time he knew nothing about her career. Maybe he just assumed everybody was retired, but he asks her, I guess, what it is she does and how long she plans to do it for. So I guess Teresa used to be a homemaker, and one day she kind of got into stocks, and then she became a day trader, which she is not anymore because her husband asked that for health insurance purposes she finds, I don't want to say a real job, but one with benefits. And I don't think she ever actually said what it is that she does. Like she works for the CIA or something, but whatever she did is clearly she was successful and she's still doing it. But that she told herself she'd keep on working unless she found a man. So it would seem that she would leave her job or wrap things up if her and Gary end up together. Seems like Gary's, a little amped up about the success that she has. I think the glimmer and the excitement that he thought he had for Leslie is now gravitating over to Teresa. He likes how she's responsible. She's got her stuff together. Then we get into her intimate past and how she hasn't been with anyone since her husband. So now we know how long it's been for everyone that's left on the show, except for Jesse, but I would bet Jesse's is pretty recent. But then they get into kind of a nice little moment where they talk about how they both still talk to their late partners, and they'll ask them what they think about what they're doing, ask for advice. And it might just be my PMS, but I got a little choked up. Something about this season. It's good stuff. Yeah, they had the music going too. You know what that does to me. But I'm just feeling like these two might be meant to be. I mean, really. I feel like Leslie is his pick for adventure, and then Teresa is his pick for the golden years. And they, of course, choose to forego their individual rooms and opt in for the fantasy suite. The lights turn off and another cheeky comment comes, but this time from Gary, saying, "You're really good at that," which for all we know, she did a magic trick, which could be also I meant that in a very G-rated way. Okay, now it's morning after for them and they're sipping coffee. And it sounds like Gary got the fundamental answers that he needed from her that night. Maybe also some fundamental activities. Then she tells him she loves him. And so it's sounding to me like he did indeed pull a Ben Higgins. Because now he does not say "I love you" back, but he does say, and the nice part is, "You know how I feel about you." So I feel like this is significant because he had no reason to keep that private with anybody else. He was very open and exposed with telling other people that he loved them. So it's like Teresa is the special one. I feel like he saw an opportunity to make their relationship different than all the other ones, and he did it. He does tell us in an interview that he did tell her that he loved her, but it's different. I think he's just trying to maintain something special between the two of them, which makes me think he's going to pick her. But then they're outside saying their goodbyes, and Teresa Teresa is still in what I think are PJs. A very tight little number. It's like a long sleeve shirt and I think underwear. And we do see a little bit of butt cheek. Still nothing compared to Young Bachelor. That is just, let's not even go there. Yeah. But at the end, Gary kind of reiterates everything that I was feeling about these two relationships. Leslie is the one who is exciting for him, and Teresa is the one who understands him on a deep level. But then it ends with him saying that he thinks he's made his decision, which we know Gary loves to live in the moment. I think I don't know. He might just propose to two women. So what does this mean for next episode? Well, the previews show clips of proposals. Well, actually not an actual proposal, but where they stand, meeting the family, lots of emotion. And then Gary distraught over causing one of them lots of pain. Just one particular person though. And if I were to place my bets, it's Leslie. He ruins her life. I'm telling you. Guys, things are getting serious. Did I say I love Golden Bachelor? I know. I was trying not to fall back into the spell of The Bachelor, but this one is just so good. I think it should only be old people from now on until forever. No chance for like fame hunting and influencers because their life will probably end before they have the chance to build the business. But I will see you in 2 weeks for our finale and have the happiest of Thanksgivings.